Welcome everyone to the 2020 Candidates Town Hall. The Rossmoor Homeowners Association is proud to be able to offer this event every 2 years as part of our service to our members and the community as a whole. I am Joe Shade, board member and coordinator of special events, and will be your host for the evening. Marion Last and Beverly Houghton will be our moderators. Frank Facey will be our timer for the evening. The event is being brought to you live by LATV, Facebook, and on YouTube as well. It will also be repeated on LATV up until the day of election, November 3rd. Candidates were given 5 event questions in response and found on the RHA website, rrossmoor.com. Each candidate will give 2-minute introductions followed by a 5-minute question with a 1-minute closing statement. The speaker has been determined by a flip of the coin or a draw. We've already determined that. In order in which the candidate segments will be presented will be first up, candidates for the 47th Congressional District, followed by the Assembly District 75, Los Alamitos School District, and the candidates for RCSD, Rossmoor Community Service District. May I please introduce our first candidate up? That will be, I believe that's Congressman Alan Lowenthal.
Congressman Lowenthal and Mr. Briscoe, we will be asking both of you to do an introduction of yourself, and if you could please include some of your educational background for the audience. You will have 2 minutes, and the timer will give you a 1-minute heads up, or I may do that because we're on virtual at the moment, and then there'll also be a 30-second acknowledgement. Go ahead, Congressman.
Thank you. My name is Alan Lowenthal, and I'm serving in my 4th term in the House of Representatives, representing the 47th District, which includes Rossmoor. I've been a resident of Long Beach for 5 decades, and I was a professor of community psychology at Cal State Long Beach for nearly 30 years, and I received my doctorate, my PhD, from The Ohio State University. Before joining Congress in 2013, I was also a community activist, a 2-term city council member in Long Beach, and served both as a California Assembly member and a state senator. I championed efforts to independent redistricting commission and also led legislative efforts to revamp the state's K-12 and higher education system, including leading the efforts to create the College Promise Partnership Act and the Student Success Act. In Congress, I'm a member of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee and the House Natural Resources Committee, where I chair the subcommittee on energy and mineral resources. I've worked tirelessly on environmental issues, including addressing climate change, preserving our federal lands for future generations, and preventing offshore oil drilling along our coast. I've worked to successfully bring much needed federal resources to our district and to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure. On the Rossmoor Homeowners Association website, I've described my positions on healthcare, climate change, immigration policy, human rights, and the challenges that this pandemic has created to our economy. I have always believed that listening to my constituents and to my colleagues in the House on both sides of the aisle is one of the most effective ways to address the issues that are important to the 47th District. I look forward to listening to all of you today and taking your questions.
Thank you, Congressman.
Mr. Briscoe, would you be so kind and give us your background and include your educational information as well? Thank you.
I'm John Briscoe. I hold 2 master's degrees, an MBA and an MBA from Claremont University. I have 2 undergraduate baccalaureates from Cal State Long Beach in speech communication and in psychology. I'm currently a doctoral candidate at this national university.
Is it on the maximum?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Okay. So that's my educational background. Way too much education, not a lot of experience. Well, I grew up and was raised in Long Beach. My mother still lives in Long Beach. I live in Orange County. I'm in Orange County, and I'm running in Orange County. It's a great place to live, and I want it that way. I've been elected 4 times, and 16 years at the end of this term, to the local school board that include Huntington Beach, Seal Beach, Mountain Valley, Westminster, and Midway City. We've done great things in the district where I'm elected. I'm most proud of a real PD program and an outstanding lighting continuum program for anybody with grandkids, nieces, nephews, or children. That the program is teaching the same approach to lighting for the entire period of time.
Thank you. Do I get to start over again? Bonus minutes? Was my speech
It's
gathered?
been recorded. It's recording.
Oh, great. Thank you. So we have, in my district, you can come to our district too, by the way. It's a bit of a drive from Los Al, but it'd be worth it. We teach the children how to write and how to write well. We teach the children cursive writing in 3rd grade that state law requires. We teach our children how to take in-class oral lecture notes, and we pick them up and we grade them, unlike most other school districts. We are a rigorous, almost private school working district, and I'm proud of that. I'll be the education congressman. The 4 issues I'm concerned about most, first and foremost, is homelessness. People are tired of people sleeping on curb sidewalks, and I have a plan to fix that. The second issue that I'm going to work on and fix is our health care problem and programs. The third is immigration, and the fourth is infrastructure, and I'll pause on that for a moment because many people in this audience in Los Alamitos, Rossmoor don't know that that's an end. Well, we have a lot to do with our harbor. That concludes my comments.
Mr. Briscoe, the question we have for you and the Congressman will be, how do you see faith-based organizations, non-governmental organizations, and the United States government working together to help in the response to recovery from the devastating fires, floods, and other disasters that continue to plague our country?
I'm a Rotarian. I'm a member of LA5 El Rodeo. I'm an optimist, HB City optimist, and my wife is a Kiwanis member. She invests tremendous time as the advisor for Marina High School, Key Club, and Key Winds. These are examples of non-governmental organizations, NGOs, who volunteer incredible time. I'm an assistant scoutmaster, and I work with youth in addition to my school board role. So non-governmental organizations contribute hugely to our community and will help support the family and the security of our children in their families back into a normal working world and role. I think our local government should reach out and ask all of these organizations to help and support getting out of the COVID thing. That concludes my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Briscoe. Mr. Lowenthal.
First, I have to say these wildfires are devastating, and the role of government will be, I think, to really deal with how do we begin to prevent some of these problems? How are we going to move us off a carbon-based economy and move us towards renewable energy, renewable sources of energy that will not contribute to the tremendous amounts of drought, wildfires, and also sea level rise that is going on. But on the ground, it's going to be the faith-based organizations, the NGOs, volunteers who are really going to be the people that help us get through this crisis. We can set overall goals. We can move, but we're going to save people by having people step up and volunteer their time and energy.
Thank you. The next question, gentlemen, and that'll be Congressman Lowenthal, you go up first, and that would be, how would you protect Social Security for today's seniors and strengthen it for future generations?
Well, that's a great question, and we have to ensure that the Social Security Trust Fund and the Medicare are protected. We know that, and we have to make sure that that the funding for those continues and that nobody steps into doing anything like that. I think some of the ways in which we're going to make sure that that trust fund stays for not just this generation, but future generations, is that we ensure that those that can contribute more, we raise in terms of Social Security, the floor. Right now, it's only, I think, the first $110,000. We need to raise that higher so that we're not only protecting now, but we're protecting future generations from Social. So we have to make sure that no one raids the trust fund, and we increase resources into the trust fund.
Thank you. Mr. Briscoe?
I have bad news for anybody here that's approaching Social Security. There is no such thing as the so-called lockbox, the security lockbox that was referred to several presidents ago. Social Security is an entitlement that's funded every year out of every budget. There's an actuarial, meaning how long people live and how much they'll consume, that posits it'll run out, I think, in 2030. And that may be the trust fund that people talk about. But there's no pile of money sitting in there just ready and willing. It's a big problem. It's a big ripoff if people think that they put money in a lockbox, because the lockbox is empty. I'm not big on raising taxes. We already pay 16% of our taxes to Social Security. My interest is to raise the age of taking Social Security. People don't live short like they used to. They live long, and we can extend the age out, which protects the Social Security ability to pay for itself.
Thank you. Next question, Mr. Briscoe, you'll go first. Mr. Lowenthal, second. On which issue will you work with members of the other party immediately after taking office?
I'm a Republican. I'm the Republican Party nominee for this district. I'm an elected official, and I work with all parties and all people. One of my dearest friends and political ally in my school board role and in Huntington Beach in our municipal politics and in Orange County is an individual who is a huge, looming large Democrat. I have many Democrat friends. I'll work with all Democrats on any project at all times. I'll give an open ear and listen. Doesn't mean I'll agree, but I'll work with any Democrat on anything that needs to be worked on, and I do that now and currently.
Thank you.
Since my first term in Congress, I've worked with many Republican colleagues on numerous issues. In fact, nearly half the bills I have introduced in the 116th Congress have included Republican co-sponsors, and I've co-sponsored numerous Republican bills in this. So there are three things that we need to do. First, the pandemic has presented a myriad challenges that must be dealt with immediately. It must be our primary focus. We must work together to ensure that Americans have the economic relief that they need. We must work together to make sure that a vaccine is safely developed and distributed, and we get the economy then back on its feet to get American work. In addition, as I talked before, climate change remains an existential threat. I think that it's really, as we move forward, this distinction between Republican and Democrat has diminished tremendously, and I think we can really work together on climate change issues. And the third point is, it is time for us again to become the leader in protecting human rights throughout the world. I am the co-chair of the Vietnamese Caucus.
We're done. Thank you. Thank you for gentlemen for working with us on keeping with the time frames. It's greatly appreciated, trust me. We do have time for one more question of both candidates, if you will, and Congressman Lowenthal, you'll go first. Mr. Briscoe, you'll go second. It's our last question to you before we do our concluding statements of the two of you. Congressman, what are your views of the immigration policy? How can your views blend with members of the other party and can be implemented in a timely manner?
Well, as I pointed out, this is my fourth term in Congress. And in my first term, there was a comprehensive immigration bill that came out of the United States Senate that had 80 votes on it. It was bipartisan. Immigration should not be a partisan issue. That bill never came up in the House. We need to work together. I think that all of us want to have a safe and secure immigration policies, and I think that we can build a tremendous coalition again to build fix a broken system in the future. And I don't see any reason, just as we did in 2013, we cannot have bipartisan support.
Thank you. Mr. Briscoe.
Immigration is one of my key concerns. I have 3 points I'll make. First, we own our border. It's our border. We own the ports. We own the airports. We own all the access, ingress, egress, in and out you go. And it's our job to keep those borders protected. Otherwise, we don't have a country. So my first interest is to secure our borders, our ports, and our airports. Borders can be secured with airplanes, sensors, drones, all kinds of different systems, but we must control our border to make sure who comes into the country belongs here. Second is our healthcare system. But the immigration, the second point is the family chain migration. We like to bring Granny and Auntie in because the family that sponsors them must promise that they don't ever go on welfare and use Social Security. It's a great program. And then third is a legal path to citizenship and participation in our great country for people here.
Thank you. Wow, perfect. We'll now move on to our closing remarks. And Mr. Briscoe, would you go first? You have 1 minute.
But it's so short. I'm John Briscoe. Second on your ballot on one half, LA, and first on your ballot in Orange County. Vote for John Briscoe. You'll be voting for an active and an interested and an experienced individual. I've governed. I've spent 16 years at the end of this term governing, and I know the system. I know how to do that. And my positions, I believe, match the community of Los Alamitos and Rossmoor. And my concerns are the concerns of yours. Something happened. Hello. Dr. Lowenthal, that concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Briscoe. Congressman Lowenthal, please.
Well, thank you. And I want to thank you and the Rossmoor Homeowners Association for the questions. It's interesting. I want to thank for your opinions and your thoughts. The bottom line, though, is we're all in this together. At the end of the day, I truly believe that most of us want many of the same things. We want to have a chance to get ahead. We want to have a chance to provide security for our families and our loved ones. We want to have the ability to be happy and healthy and to be treated equally and fairly. While we may differ on how we get there or how we make these things happen, pardon?
30 seconds.
I do believe that these things are important to all of us. No matter how my ideology may differ from you, I want you to know that I want all these things, not just for each of us, but for every American. Lastly, I want you to know that I'm your representative in Congress. I'm going to continue to listen to you, continue to work for you, and to continue to help you when you need it. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. And that now concludes the section on the congressional candidates. And we want to encourage those viewing to certainly voice your opinion at the ballot, with your ballot. And we thank you both. And we thank the audience out there for hanging in there with us with the virtual experience. I guess that's the day, what we do best in this day and age. And we want to thank all the staff here that has made this work fluidly. Thank you again. That'll now conclude this section. And we'll get ready for our next candidate. Joe?
Yes, thank you, gentlemen, very much for your participation. And now we would like to introduce our Assembly District number 72 candidates. Please come and have a seat at our tables up front here. We welcome Janet Nguyen. Hello, Janet. Good evening. Thank you for joining us this evening. And is she the only one that we have with us this evening? Looks like it. Okay, let's do it.
Thank you. So do I get double the time? Oh, wait, no, you want to leave early, right?
Good evening. Thank you for being here with us tonight. We'd like you to begin by giving us a 2-minute open introduction to yourself.
Thank you. Good evening. And first, I want to thank the Rossmoor Homeowner Association for hosting this and for giving me an opportunity. Again, I'm Janet Nguyen, also a former state senator. I represented this district, this city, for 4 years in the state senate. Prior to that, I was also a county supervisor. Although I did not represent Rossmoor as a county supervisor, I worked with your county supervisor, then Supervisor John Morlock, on a lot of issues that we dealt with in Rossmoor. Also a former councilwoman. Just a little background of myself. My family came from Vietnam. We were the boat people. My father fought alongside American soldier in Vietnam, and my uncle was an officer who was executed right before the fall of Saigon. And so after fall of Saigon, my father was sought for re-education camp, and so we had to escape. And we escaped, and we escaped by boat onto Thailand and onto California. We were sponsored by a church group to come to California. Coming to this country as a refugee, we were very poor, didn't speak any English, and we were able to be part of the social service programs. We won welfare food stamps, and at 10 years old, I was already cleaning houses with families and friends so that we can make a little bit of money. And we did a little bit better, moved to Orange County. And so, you know, that's my history in terms of having to be this country. I love this country. My brother also my brother is a retired Marine, so you can see that military service in my family is very deep and very proud of. And so, again, thank you for allowing me to be here today.
Thank you. We have a series of questions that we'd like to ask you at this point that have been given to us by the community. First one is, as you know, Rossmoor is an unincorporated area within the county. As such, we have no local representation, and the County Board of Supervisors is our governing body. In your representative role as a state assembly member, how would this unique governmental relationship influence your view of our needs as citizens, and how do you plan to represent the needs of Rossmoor residents both locally and to the state?
I will not treat Rossmoor any different. As you can see, as your former senator, a lot of our celebrations in our city, such as our Winterfest, our May celebration, our concerts in the park, I was personally here and attended. Anytime I was back in the district, I came to the city, came to the board meetings as well, and worked alongside your board members and also your general manager, and just to making sure that we know what the issues are and we're fighting for you. So there's no difference where I was 4 years ago as your senator and how I would treat this city, because you are as important as any other cities, and any residents in the district itself are very important to me.
Thank you. Next question. Will you support the more than 200 residents of South Rossmoor who are demanding acoustic monitoring of traffic from the wide 405 freeway and improvements to the existing inadequate sound wall to bring it up to current standards? What agencies would be involved in having this issue be resolved in a timely manner?
Absolutely. As your former senator, I was with you in the forefront of fighting for those sound walls. We were there, we wrote letters, we wrote legislations in Sacramento, forcing to make sure that Caltrans and also OCTA abide by the sound walls, because it is very important for the quality of life of Rossmoor residents, and also not only just Rossmoor, Seal Beach, and also Los Alamitos as well in our area, and on to actually Westminster and Fountain Valley in the entire district, and portion of it is in Huntington Beach as well. So absolute, I was there fighting with you, alongside you, when I was in the Senate for 4 years, and I will still be doing the same thing.
Thank you. Do you support continued funding for the California high-speed rail? If yes, where would you find the more than $60 billion needed to complete the Los Angeles to San Francisco system? If no, how would you wind down the project?
It's a no. That bullet train is to nowhere. It is a waste of money of California. It's not moving, and it keeps on doubling and quadrupling the cost every time we turn around and look at the project. We need to wind down the project and call it quit before it gets any worse. The funding can go to other areas of the state, which are like fixing our infrastructure that we've promised. We need to fix infrastructure, but infrastructure is not just the highway and the freeways here. We're talking about surface streets, not just a major surface street, but also neighborhood as well. There are potholes, and cities locally, whether they're cities or unincorporated, needs those funding to fix the cities' potholes and streets construction within our areas, and that's what I did as a county supervisor. We allocated funding for individual cities and unincorporated areas, and we also did so when I was in the Senate as well.
Thank you. Number 4, how do you propose we safely open up struggling mom-and-pop businesses, the self-employed and other essential entities such as houses of worship that have been hurt because of the state and county mandates that appear more favorable and generous to big businesses?
The local businesses are, our mom and pop business is the backbone of our economy, especially locally. We have to do whatever it takes to start bringing back these businesses, of course, with the mindset that making sure that it's safe for the employees and also for customers as well. And if we need to aid and bring in more grants, we need to do that, because at the end of the day, as I mentioned, they are the economy within our cities and in our areas. And if we don't provide and be able to allow them to open safely, you have already seen a lot of them who've been beacons of our area for 40 plus years are closing down. People want to provide for their family. They want to provide a quality of life for their family and children. Let's allow them to do so. Let's give them guidelines, and let's give them the support they need. And that's what Sacramento should be doing, versus going from one system to another system, closing and opening, closing and opening. Businesses need to prepare, especially if it's a restaurant.
Okay, time is up on that question. Thank you. Okay, one last question. Do you support or oppose the proposition to raise business property taxes? On what basis do you formulate your opinion?
Are you talking about Prop 15? I oppose Prop 15. Prop 15, what people don't understand is that when property taxes are raised in businesses, the mom and pop's restaurants and businesses are the one who's going to be bearing the burden of those costs. When they bear those burdens of those costs, the consumers will then have the higher price of goods costs as well. So in the end, it is a no-win situation for the community. And so we have to, and especially during this economic difficult time in our country, and not only our state and our county and our cities, this is not the time to start increasing billions and billions of dollars taxes. This is the time where we lend a hand to helping these businesses, not taking more from them and forcing them to shut down.
Thank you. You now have 1 minute for your closing comments.
Again, I just want to thank the Rossmoor Homeowner Association. I'm running for state assembly is because we haven't had a representation here in the last couple of years. We had a member who voted for AB 5. AB 5 is the worst bill, the worst job killer bill in the state of California. We need someone up there who has experience, who can get to Sacramento and work immediately, and I'm that candidate. I've been honored and have been given your support. I've always had majority of Rossmoor support in my elections. And I'm asking you, please give me that opportunity. My experience and my effort in fighting and making sure that we fight for our residents will be taken up to Sacramento. Right now, there's hundreds of thousands of dollars, almost $1 million coming into our district, and they're all from Sacramento. Those who are destroying and taxing our state and taxing our residents and hurting our local cities. And I'm here. I'm actually showing up. That's the first thing, is I will show up like I have when I was in the Senate, and I will continue to do so as your representative. Please give me the honor of having your support. Again, I'm Janet Nguyen.
Thank you very much.
For your participation and showing up. We appreciate that. And next,
Can we
Hold on.
take a little break at the moment, if we can? We're ahead of schedule,
Yes.
and the moderators would like to coordinate some efforts right now for the
Absolutely.
next segment of candidates, if that's okay.
Okay.
5 minutes?
Yes. Okay. Good evening. We're back from our break here. Wanting to welcome the LAUSD Board of Trustee candidates. Please welcome our following candidates: Jody Robanis, Porvi Trivedi, and we've got Chris Farnham. Got it. Okay, I'm trying to read his name card over there. Anyway, let's get going. Here we go. Miss Marion, could you?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Perfect.
Welcome, and thank you again for your process and your responses to our requests. Our first question will be a basic introduction, if you would, please. And we'd like you to talk about basically about yourself and also include any educational background in that, if you would, please. And you will have 2 minutes. And we ask that you watch our timers here. They'll keep you on cue, and I think you were witnessing that when you were in the back of the audience. And Chris, you all allowed us to go call you by first names. We appreciate that. And so, Chris, if you would begin, we would appreciate it.
Thank you. To the Rossmoor Homeowners Association for this town hall. I am Chris Forhan, and I'm a candidate for Trustee Area 2 for the Los Al School District Board. I'm a well-qualified candidate for the Board of Education. I have served 38 years in public education. I have great respect for Los Alamitos School District. My wife and I raised 2 children who attended K-12 in Los Alamitos and went on to 4-year universities. Sadly, our daughter, Mandy, died of an incurable blood disorder while in college, and my wife, Jill, died in 2018 after battling breast cancer for 30 years. I have lived in Trustee Area 2 since 1980 and have 2 wonderful grandsons attending Lee Elementary. As a teacher, a principal, a director, and pre-K through 12th grade assistant superintendent of ed services, I have been recognized for my leadership, providing timely and clear communication, my support of programs that enhance learning, for stakeholder involvement, and for always putting kids first. I have been recognized for valuing diversity and involvement in PTA with the Honorary Life and Oak Awards for service to kids and community. I have led my schools to 2 Golden Bell Awards from the California School Boards Association for our work in arts and education. I know and support programs and activities that honor all people, their ethnicity, and their culture. My background, experience, integrity is one that is consistent with the core values of the school district. I'm a good listener, collaborator, and one that will take action.
Thank you. Porvi?
Hi, my name is Porvi Trivedi. Thank you to the RHA for organizing this great way to connect our candidates in a local race. I hold a bachelor's degree in business from American, also an MDE, a management development for entrepreneur from UCLA's Anderson School of Management, and was recently appointed to the UCI Customer Experience Program Advisory Board. All the candidates in my race care about education, children, maintaining the excellence of Los Al School District, how qualified we are. I agree, we're all great people, worthy of your vote. But I have a few different, unique, valuable qualifications that set me apart. I'm a working parent dealing with issues like doing a great job as a marketing professional while still ensuring my student stays engaged through remote learning over the past 6 months. I know how stressed teen and younger children can be by social media. I know how to reassure my child that we will overcome the pandemic and the current societal tension. The last time a board member had a child in our school district on the board was over 10 years ago. I will represent parents, the people with the most at stake in this race. As you know, parenting has changed even so much over the last 6 months. We've all had to pivot. I walk the walk. None of my opponents currently have school-age children in our district. I also bring a business experience to the board, something which it currently lacks. I work in a private enterprise creating million-dollar marketing campaigns, managing huge budgets for Fortune 100 companies. We need that perspective on the board. We are going to be facing a lot of budget cuts. I deeply care about our children, the district. I have spent countless hours as a volunteer in music programs, grading papers, AYSO soccer, as an active PTA participant on local and national levels. I will bring a parent's perspective, a practical and ground thinking to the board. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jody.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Jody Robanis, and I too am running for school board in trustee area 2. And that does not encompass all of Rossmoor. Most of you know me from my PTA volunteerism, and I've actually been in this room several times promoting active transportation, bike route safety, and concerns about marijuana dispensary going up by the high school. What many of you don't know is that I'm also have been a full-time professor part of the time while I've been here back in California. On the East Coast, I started my tenure in higher education with over 20 years of experience. Some focus areas for me have been writing across the curriculum, involving students. I primarily was a teacher educator. Many of my CTE students went on to teach elementary school and high school. During that tenure as a high school educator, I really saw students who came to me to get their bachelor's degree and their master's degree. I really saw a difference in students. We saw millennials who were very well versed in global issues, but not so versed maybe in local issues. And now we have the I generation that learning social skills sometimes is a challenge, but we're very good at doing interactive computer types of things. I think I'm the only member here that really understands what it is for students to be prepared for college, since 80% of our students from Los Alamitos High School do go on to college. I want to mention most of all, too, is that I have twin boys who are class of 2020, and importantly, as a parent, they have very different learning needs. I have one child who has an individualized plan. I have another child who is very involved in AP courses and soccer, and they had very different needs that the high school needed to pivot to meet to. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I'll introduce the first question for our panel, and we will start with Purvi, if you would, but I will ask the question. Nearly 30% of the Los Alamitos Unified School District student enrollment is based on inter-district transfers. How has this cohort impacted how the school district operates, and what are the advantages?
Hello. The advantages are we have diversity from a variety of population. We are learning values, cultures from everybody around us. We have not had any problem regarding the cohorts, the staff, administrators. Everyone has done a great job keeping everybody's classes together. Today was the first day of high school. My son came home with a smile. It's great. We have the room. We have six elementary schools, and we can accommodate everyone who wants to have an education in Los Al School District. Thank you.
Sorry, we're getting Jody, if you would, please. Thank you. Sorry.
Yes, inter-district transfers, and you use the number, and I'll say it's a statistic of 30% of current Los Al students are not inter-district transfer. I actually would question where that number comes from, because that number has actually steadily gone down over the last 6 years. I know that the school board, the district has worked to decrease those numbers. And part of what we're trying to do is we're trying to achieve a ratio in our K-3 classes of 1 to 24, and in our 4 through 12, 1 to 32 students. A benefit of having transfer students, of course, is having more money come over, but there has definitely been a decrease, and the school district has been working to decrease those numbers.
Thank you, and I stand corrected. Thank you. Chris, if you would, please.
Yes. That's a great question, because the other day I was asked that question as I'm walking door to door throughout our trustee area. And first of all, it is a money issue. That does generate more money. That's the most important part. And it's important that as we bring kids into our district, they will we maintain that critical student-teacher ratio, because we don't want to overwhelm anymore our teachers. 24 in the kindergarten through third is enough, and right now, diversity is also an important thing. These kids bring diverse ideas and cultures for all our kids to enjoy and accept.
Thank you.
Okay, for the second question, we'll start with Jody. Are you prepared to make tough decisions? For example, if student enrollment doesn't exist, what would you do to sustain the financial health of the school district?
Bev, that's a great question. In fact, one of the biggest issues facing the school district now is the decline of enrollment and deficit spending budget. And I'll just be real frank with you, there are going to have to be difficult decisions made. And having a school board member, and I think it's very important, that represents and thinks about all the constituents who the school board is representing, not just the teachers, but includes the parents, includes the community, includes all members. And so I'll say that an important aspect in making those tough decisions is getting community input and having an understanding of the problem. But I also want to say, too, is that I do champion teachers that are nimble, that are well prepared so that they can teach in many different areas. We're a one high school district, and never have I experienced high school teachers that can teach in one content area and then shift and teach in another. So it's going to be asking more of our teachers, it's going to be asking more of our staff, but there are going to be tough decisions that have to be made.
Thank you. Chris?
Given the pandemic, there's absolutely going to be issues brought to us that as board members, we're going to have to find outside resources to help supplant or help us enlarge the number of dollars we have to meet the needs of our kids. So I would look to the outside for grants. I would help the staff understand that we got to go after that money. And I think one good thing I've got going for me is that I have the experience of having lived through budget cuts in my district that I work for. So I can bring that to the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Parvati?
I would look to our community, our stakeholders, our teachers for some of their expert advice, opinions. Also, having managed multi-million-dollar budgets, I've experienced ensure funds are spent directly on resources for students, making the learning environment safe, improving classroom instruction, and making sure that we have the best teachers in our district. Again, we have to pivot, think outside the box. There's hundreds of grants, there's a lot of programs, there's support out there. We just need to look for it, find it, and work hard together. Thank you.
Okay. Hoping I don't get this order mixed up. I'm going to yield to you again on this next question, Purvi. So sorry about mispronunciation. There's no excuse for it. I apologize profusely. But the next question is, how can the school district involve community members in addition to parents in the decision-making process, including curriculum development? And what will you do to encourage active community mispronunciation? There's no excuse for.
Excellent question. I'm a firm believer of involving our community. We have brilliant minds in our community. We have excellent stakeholders. We can do surveys, we can get their input, we can advertise board meetings, encourage them to be a little later at the workshop so they're not at 4:30 where many parents are working or running their kids back and forth from practice. Community involvement is critical. I will do surveys, go to outreaches, and make sure that every member of our community is involved. Thank you.
Jody.
Thank you. My entire professional career has been advocating for public education, and the genius behind public education in the United States is the understanding of school boards of their local communities. A critical part of that success is school boards being able to reach into communities and represent their constituents so that when they're coming in to make a decision that they're representing those constituents. So it's being balanced balanced. I do want to mention that you talked about curriculum. The school district, before COVID hit, it was looking at implementing an ethnic studies class. And you might know that AB 331 is also coming through. It's some legislation that will make it a requirement. But that's an area where it's very important to get community input, because the whole point of that is understanding histories, cultures, ethnicities of persons in the local community.
Sorry, thank you. Chris.
I've built my career on stakeholder involvement, and that's an excellent question, because there should be no reason, especially in Los Alamitos Unified, that we can't include community members as well as staff, of course, as we redesign what curriculum is going to look like for the next few years. Jody brought up the ethnic studies. That would be a perfect example of, let's get our community together, let's talk about what should be in ethnic studies to bring about a kinder and more special world to our students here in our district. So I'm all for it. Let's figure out a way to get them in and do it at a time that's appropriate, so they're not running around getting kids and having to work and that kind of stuff. So I feel good about that.
Thank you.
Okay, Chris, I'm going to let you start this next question. The pandemic aside, what do you feel is the greatest challenge us, your constituents, in the next 12 months? And what will you propose, if elected, to address that issue?
I really believe that we're going to have to take a good look at what have our kids learned since the pandemic. We're going to have, I think the biggest challenge we're going to have is to bring them back to the high academic level that we have them at, having had this different way of learning this past, 6 months since March. I also feel like the mental health of the kids and the socialization of the kids is critical. And we need to have the resources in the next 12 months to meet any kinds of needs based on the last 6 months. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a three trifecta. First one, learning, different learning perspectives. Everybody's at a different level. Remote learning has been challenging for many students. Remote learning has been a success for many students. Now children are slowly returning to the classroom, but there's still a gap. Teachers are working hard to bridge the gap. Secondly is the budget. We are going to be facing massive budget cuts, so we need to make sure to spend our money directly on resources for students, making the learning environment safe, and improve classroom instruction. Lastly, mental health. Many of our children are not doing well, and we have to build upon the mental health resources that Dr. Pulver started inputting the wellness centers at Oak and McAuliffe. Thank you.
Thank you. Jody?
Thank you. I along with my colleagues up here, I'll say the mitigation of learning loss from COVID. And it's just really hard to say that aside from COVID. But one of the points that I think members, and I think it's so wonderful we have these dialogues and we look at our school board and discuss some of these issues. Thank you, RHA, for doing this. But understanding learning loss, and it's not the same for all students. Students with special needs, students with autism are going to have greater regression of learning loss without that face-to-face influence compared to other students. Some other issues that I think are top of the list, looking at human relations and diversity, mental health and support. I also think that we need to be looking at some solar projects in the school district, budget deficit spending, and then of course adapting to this new trustee area sort of system. Thank you.
Thank you. Jody, we're going to start with you on the next question. Okay. Thank you. What are your plans to ensure that all special needs students receive a free and appropriate education in an in-person, safe educational setting? What are your ideas in making up for the setbacks in their educational, emotional progress due to the shutdown in an adequate online setting?
Yeah, this is a real timely question and a very astute one. I think that some of whoever asked that question understands that the California Department of Education did not put out guidelines for special needs cohorts to come back. And I want you to know that I was part of the community advocacy of these are the students where we're seeing the greatest loss and having the greatest needs of coming back face to face. And also they meet the criteria because often they stay in the same timeline. I think that being a parent that has a child with special needs and having to advocate for that child and just the challenges on so many fronts, I think that I bring that awareness and that concern to this group. And we talk about equity in education. Well, you look at needs, and the needs for students with special needs is greater, and they're going to have greater interventions needed.
Appreciate. Chris.
It's all about equity, and it's got to be fair and consistent for especially the kids with special needs. I was in charge of the special ed program as K-12 assistant soup, and I got to know kids, and I got to know them very well. And for them to have been home this past time without that maybe one-on-one instruction or at least small group instruction, it has to have been devastating. It has to be hard on their parents. We listened the other day to a parent at the board meeting on Saturday that said they were having a terrible time with at-home learning. So let's jump in, let's do it right, let's bring those kids into the classroom and get them back on track. Thank you.
Thank you. Purvi.
Thank you. Excellent question. I know it's difficult for special need students. It definitely needs to be fair and equitable. It is challenging. I have many close friends who have special need students. I have helped advocate, written papers, done research, looked at data. They need to be back in the classroom. I'm a huge supporter. I will do everything in my power since it does not only personally affect me, but it affects our community, and it's important. And I will do whatever I can to make sure they have a statement and a well presence in our education system.
Thank you. Can I, just before we go to the next question, if we could just, the questions that we have given you today, and even in your pre-written scenario, were actually created by the general community and the RHA board. So the pre-event questions that you responded to were posted, just so you know. And then tonight's questions, the oral, we'll call this your oral interview, if you will, actually come from the similar kind of cohort, and then we took questions up until actually this morning. So that's where we've created the questions, and there were some really well thought out questions that we thought would be appropriate for this evening. And I could see you kind of asking that question. So thank you.
Yeah.
Bev?
Okay, each candidate will now have 1 minute for their closing remarks, and we'll start with you, Parvati.
I am Purvi Trivedi, running for Trustee Area 2. I am bringing the parent perspective to the board. Now more so than ever, we need the parent perspective. We are all dealing with a lot, and we have a lot at stake. Parenting has changed so much in the last 6 months. We've had to pivot. I walk the walk and talk the talk. Please vote for Purvi Trivedi, Trustee Area 2. Follow me on my social media website, purvitrivedi.com, Instagram, and Facebook. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jody?
I'm Jody Robanis. I, too, am running for trustee area number 2. I promise to provide community oversight to protect the public interests of pursuing an education that's equitable for all children. I also promise to work collectively with the board. I promise to ask questions. I promise to do my best to do research. I promise to collaborate and learn with the board. I passionately pursue academic excellence for all students, not just middle of the road, not just academically gifted, not just special ed, all students. Vote for me, Jody Robanis, Los Alamitos Unified School Board Trustee Area number 2.
Thank you. And Chris?
First of all, thank you to the Rossmoor Homeowners Association for hosting tonight's town hall. It gave us a good chance to meet each other as well as share our opinions. And as I've stated throughout my career in education, I've been recognized as one who always puts kids first. I value diversity, I'm a problem solver, I'm a collaborator, and I've always celebrated student diversity, student achievement, staff efforts, and parent involvement. I value integrity, hard work, clear and timely communication, and making a difference for all children. I'm a qualified candidate for the Board of Education. Please vote for Chris Forehand, Trustee Area 2, Los Alamitos School Board. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we want to thank all the candidates, and then, you know, we thank you again for your time. We know that it's a very challenging evening, and we thank everyone for being here. What we're going to do is now take about a 10-minute break and set up for our next segment with the RCSD candidates. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates. Thank you for your participation. All right, we're back. Welcome back. And we are back with our RCSD board candidates. May I introduce Mr. Jeff Barkey, Mr. Nathan Searless, Mr. Tony DeMarco, and Mr. Michael Maynard. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks. Thank you.
Good evening. We will start with a 2-minute introduction by each of you, and we will start with Jeff Barkey.
Thank you, Bev. Good evening, Rossmoor. It's great to be here. First of all, thank you to Rossmoor Homeowners Association for putting on this event and making it possible. And by the way, if you're watching from home and you're not a member of the RHA, I would encourage you to join. It's an important organization and they do good work. My wife and I have lived in Rossmoor for over 20 years. We have raised both our children in Rossmoor attending Los Al schools. To me, community service has always been an important part of my life. And that's why I've been the longtime director of a nonprofit organization that you may be aware of called Pathways to Independence. Pathways helps at-risk young women who want to turn their life around. My medical practice provides free care to over 50 of the Pathways clients. As you may also know, I've been an elected school board member for 12 years of the Los Alamitos Unified School District. During my time on the school board in Rossmoor, I led the effort to reduce interdistrict transfers to the 4 elementary schools that are in Rossmoor: Hopkinson, that my kids attended, Weaver, Lee, and Rossmoor Elementary School. In addition, I worked to change the start times to stagger them in order so there's less traffic that goes into the Rossmoor community. And by and large, the consensus is that we were successful in reducing traffic to the Rossmoor community. I was appointed about a year ago to the RCSD. I was the only one who raised my hand to volunteer for the open seat. The directors believed that my deep personal relationships with local elected officials, specifically our county supervisors and the Orange County Sheriff's Department, would help Rossmoor achieve some of the goals that we were trying to achieve. I love this community. It's a beautiful community. I love serving this community, and I ask for your vote to allow me to continue to serve on the RCSD. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, moving on. Nathan?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Nathan Searles, candidate for director of the RCSD. I'm a litigation attorney. I graduated with a business degree from USC, and my law school was the University of Florida, where I studied predominantly tax and business law. I have a great Rossmoor story. My wife and I, with our young daughter, were up at USC attending a football tailgate. We were driving home. She had fallen asleep, and she was less than 2 years old, and we were heading to Newport Beach. It was too hot to drive down to the peninsula and sit in the sun, and it was loud there, so we pulled into Rossmoor. We'd never been here before, but we knew it. Coach John Savage at UCLA was my former coach at USC. My wife's friend was an intern for Aaron Kaminsky at Weaver Elementary. We pulled into the neighborhood, and immediately on Ruther Lane, we hit the tree-covered streets. We felt great. Our daughter was taking a nap. We drove through the neighborhood. The canopy was perfect. Kids were playing. Kids were riding bikes. There were bounce houses everywhere. The houses were different, but there was pride everywhere. I'm running for the RHA, or the RCSD, because the RHA needs a partner. The RHA is a great volunteer organization, but it's reliant on volunteer funds and members. The RCSD is an elected body representing all of Rossmoor. It has a budget, it has staff, and it has the organizational relationships to take advantage of what RHA wants to do. We need a board that will do that for the RHA, and that is why I'm running. We need a board that's responsible with that budget. We continue to have these droughts, and we need to have the budget available for replacing and repairing the parkway trees. Our residents cannot be burdened with higher watering rates because our trees are suffering. We need a board that works with the county regarding mosquitoes. There's one flying in here right now. We need someone who will work with the county. We need someone who will work with the county about the coyotes that are coming back again. We need someone who works with the county on traffic issues, lane changes. 2 months ago, Director Mendoza let us know that Seal Beach was looking at a lane change. No one has met with the county yet. This is not acceptable. We need a board that will do so. We're not demanding more than we're entitled to based on the Harvey Rose study. Please elect me as director.
Thank you. Tony?
Thank you. Thank you, RHA, for allowing me to speak and putting this on. As Director Barkey just mentioned, RHA is a huge asset of our community of Rossmoor. So my name is Tony DeMarco, and I am running for director of the RCSD. I love Rossmoor, and that's why I'm here. My wife and I moved here in Rossmoor in 2005. We raised our 3 children, all went through Los Alamitos School District. My youngest is a junior, just started school today, back from 6 months off just today. He's a junior at Los Alamitos. As you know, we are an unincorporated island, Rossmoor is, and we lack the powers to completely govern ourselves. However, as a board member over the last 7 years, I feel I've made substantial changes to the Rossmoor quality of life. I know that I've constantly pushed for safety on Montecito. As a board member, I voted to increase or to change out all of our street lighting, make them LED lighting, because I felt that all of our streets were very dimly lit, and it was very unsafe, certainly at night, certainly when we get fog. Montecito is at times a unsafe road because of conditions and people speeding and people running stop signs. I live on Bostonian, and I see it occasionally, more often than not. I continue, and I will continue to make Montecito safer. I also believe that even though we are an island, we need a presence, a political presence. So over the last 7 years, I know that our board has certainly had more of an influence politically in getting things done with the county and with other departments. Thank you.
So one quick question. Could you explain your a little bit about your educational background?
Sure. I got a undergraduate degree from UCLA. I went to high school at Downey, and I'm a small business owner in Los Angeles.
Thank you. Okay, Michael?
Again, thanks for the RHA.
Same question and
oh, go ahead.
same additional information about your education.
I haven't even had my statement yet.
Okay.
Oh, I will include it, though.
Okay.
Thanks for the RHA for sponsoring this. It's been a long tradition that RCSD's facilities and RHA work together. My name is Michael Maynard. I am currently on the board of directors, but also seeking re-election. I have had the pleasure of serving this board for the last 10 years. 4 of those terms, the board has asked me to be its president and to help lead the board and lead this community. I've done so with passion, and I've done so with a love for Rossmoor. We've had many accomplishments. Some of the highlights are when At one point, we had policies, and in our park there was policies. And every now and then when there was people breaking the policies, the sheriffs wouldn't do anything because their job is not to enforce policy, but to enforce law. So I picked up the ball and created and helped lead the whole process of codifying all of our policies into actually ordinances so we can have safer parks. During this time frame of the last, since 2011, helped ward off low-income housing behind the shops of Rossmoor, helped thwart 24-hour fitness, have worked very closely with the RHA, with our supervisor, on lots of issues, including animal control. So my educational background is I did undergraduate, graduated from Cal Poly Pomona, and did graduate studies at Cal State Fullerton. I'm a local product of California. I've lived in Rossmoor since 2002, which makes me a newbie. My neighborhood, most people have lived there many more years than 18 years, which is what I have. I have a lovely wife, Darlene. I have 2 kids who we've brought up here, who are now 18 and 20. And again, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the first question, we will start with Nathan on this. It's directed more toward candidates that have not served in this position, but I want you to adapt your answer to what you have been doing. Community visibility is essential to effective governing. How often have you attended Rossmoor-related events? How many community, non-RSD, non-RHA events have you attended to represent Rossmoor? Are you aware of the schedule associated with being a director of the board and able to fill the expectations on scheduled meetings and events? As a director, what community functions have you or do you see yourself voluntarily participating in representing Rossmoor? Nathan?
Yes, thank you. That's a perfect question, and it relies on really where my opening statement went. A director needs to be reaching out beyond Rossmoor. You gather the facts, the stories of people from Rossmoor, and then you go and meet with the decision makers that might impact you. So when Director Mendoza talks about meeting with Seal Beach about a traffic lane change, I would expect a director would be meeting with the Orange County Public Works to understand how that works. And yes, that's a commitment a director needs to make. A director is going to sit on the committees for traffic and budget, and we only had 1 director at each of the last 2 meetings for those. So I expect that's necessary. You should be at city council meetings for Seal Beach and Los Alamitos. If you think there's going to be something impacting a community, we need to be there. We're that voice. We need to be present at Chamber of Commerce events as well. The situation with the LA Fitness was a tax situation for Seal Beach, and so we need to understand what's going on in their decision making, and then we can influence it as well. So yes, I expect that you would need to be attending those events if you want to be a successful director for the RCSD.
Thank you. Tony, same question?
Yes. Well, first of all, there's like a lot of residents in Rossmoor, many residents, like Mr. Searles, kind of get confused as to what the function of the board is. Mr. Mendoza is our general manager. He's not a director. And Mr. Mendoza, does what the board of directors, instructs him to do. And certainly we have a traffic committee that meets for issues, and we've had a meeting. We just had a meeting last week. So again, we got to get the facts straight. And a lot of times residents need to come to our meetings, and they will understand what the processes are. But I can tell you, in answering the question, the framework of RCSD, you ask about what we do or what I've done or what we're all doing outside of Rossmoor or other than RCSD and RHA. My store is in unincorporated Los Angeles, East Los Angeles, 150,000 people. They do not have a services district, and I'm actually talking with Supervisor Solis's staff about hopefully forming a district like ours. So it's the model here in Rossmoor is incredible, and I like it very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael?
There's a lot that goes on between Rossmoor. What you see in a boardroom is what I call the tip of the iceberg. It's what you prepare and bring to the meetings and what you do. When Janet Nguyen was here, she was talking about how she worked with Rossmoor over issues. Well, that was Tony and I who actually reached out to her and built that relationship when she was actually a supervisor, because at the time, John Morlock was not very favorable of Rossmoor. And we actually had to get things done with another supervisor who wasn't exactly our supervisor. So we got some success there. Also, this year, working with Tyler Deep. So we have reached out and worked with other communities, and one of the highlights is there's a thing called the Mayor Consortium. And when I was president last time, we had a big threat of a distribution center in Cypress and what that was going to do to Catella. And the one thing I brought up, so we organized the mayor of Seal Beach, the mayor of Los Al, and myself. And basically, we went and we band together and we fought the city of Cypress and told them that it's irresponsible for you to have a distribution center because the one thing you need is freeway access. And you have to go through Rossmoor and Los Al, and you're going to clog it up. So that was one of the successes we had outside of the walls of Rossmoor. And go to the RHA site where it's got my questions. You'll see a lot of those accomplishments that are beyond the walls of Rossmoor.
Thank you. Jeff?
Thank you, Bev. I remember 15 or so years ago, before I ran for the Los Alamitos Unified School District and ultimately got elected, I attended every single school board meeting to understand what exactly went on at the school board, what did they do, and what did their deliberations look like. I don't recall over my last year here on the RCSD seeing any of our new candidates that want to run showing up to understand what it is we do. There's a lot that goes on in Rossmoor, and I'm proud to show up and participate in endless numbers of activities, some put on by RHA, some sponsored by RCSD. Many of the Rossmoor residents and homeowners can't really tell who's who. They just want to come out and support Rossmoor, and I think that's important. Because I have deep relationships with many of our elected officials, I've been meeting with them on a regular basis, even before I was appointed to the RCSD board, but especially during. I've met with Michelle Steele multiple times, her chief of staff, her legislative director. I've met with Tyler Deep multiple times as well. We organized a meeting as it relates to the sound and the noise in the corner of Rossmoor over by Hopkinson with Orange County Transportation Authority with the help of Assemblyman Deep. So there's a lot that the RCSD is involved with, committee assignments and our involvement in the community. That's half the fun of being on the RCSD.
Thank you.
Okay. Just to give you a little background on how the questions were actually created, you had your pre-event questions that you responded to in a written format. Those were designed, the questions were designed by the general public and RHA, so that you know that these questions were, it's a community effort as well to introduce these concepts. And also we were taking, the written questions also were created under the same format. So what you hear tonight is a community effort once again. So the questions one of the questions we received from the general community, and this will be directed, Tony, you'll be the first up on this. So here's the question. The issue of parking cars in front of residents' home on street sweeping days has been a challenging issue for decades. Since Rossmoor has agreed on the revised sweeping program with alternating sides of the street, what's happening with that? We understand that the county has requested solid bids and the costing. We want to know what's happening with that as well. Tony?
Thank you. So this is a 50-year-old problem in Rossmoor, and it's a problem because it's, again, we're not a city. We can't take over the street sweeping. The RCSD only pays for the contract, and we get the money from the county. We have been working on this issue for pretty much as long as I've been on the board, but certainly the last 5 years. So where we are at right now, and had the pandemic not hit, I'm confident we would have gotten it passed. We have met with Supervisor Steele. We have laid out a plan. It's just a small ordinance change, okay, to allow us to do alternate sweeps. So the RCSD did put together a fact-finding. We went out and wanted to know what the residents want. We had a large gathering in this auditorium. I actually was moderator, and we got the input. We gave our plan, which was alternate streets, because there has to do with signage, there has to do with the budget too, okay, because the county pays for it. So we are very, very hopeful that in the very near future, and certainly even if, Supervisor Steele goes to Congress, that we get something by the end of the year, if not the beginning of next year. So it's coming.
Thank you. Michael?
Same question?
Yes.
Oh, okay. What Tony said, completely accurate, but here's what happened. We had it all lined up. We were ready. I call it a pre-pack. Even the ordinance changed. We ran through our legal. The language was there. Everyone's nodding our head, and then COVID hit. And then all of a sudden, all of the supervisors' meetings turned in a completely different direction. And frankly, COVID was, our parking and our street sweeping was no longer an issue. All of their meetings were dictated about public safety, masks. We all have been living this. That is what happened. However, as president of this board, I still work with Joe of saying, when can it open? When can it open? Ironically, he and I talked about it last week. We are getting to the point, he's already solidified the bid, and part of the bid that makes it cost efficient is with the city of Long Beach. They actually are their own enterprise. They actually own it as a cost center. And one of the biggest costs for street sweeping is distribution. All the gas it takes to get the street sweepers over here, that's why it's cost effective for Long Beach, who has open capacity to come and help us with the problem. And the not financing, but the cost of this is negligible. This is going to be a huge benefit, and the only thing that stopped it was COVID. But now that we're 6 months in, we're moving forward.
Thank you. Jeff?
We're almost there. I'm going to put a slightly different spin on this. One of the great things about the way in which President Maynard kind of runs the RCSD board, actually one of the great things about the board is we all love Rossmoor, and we all look to work collaboratively to solve problems. We don't always agree, but we agree to hear each other and come up with a solution that we think is best for Rossmoor. So under the leadership of President Maynard, he sits back and says, who's the person on the board that maybe has the best and important relationships to solve a problem that we're dealing with? Who has the right aptitude to help us create the solution? And as it relates to the street sweeping, I've got a personal relationship with Supervisor Steele and know a lot of her support staff. So I was able to pick up the phone and call them to help set up meetings to create the environment that allowed her to understand what we wanted to do and agree to take our issue and ultimately go to the other supervisors where we'll ultimately need permission. So I'm excited for this street sweeping problem to be solved. As soon as COVID settles down a little bit, we'll get there. No more ticketing, no more hassling parking on moving your cars. We'll have a solution that I think will work for all of Rossmoor.
Thank you. Nathan?
Thank you. First, I'd like to clear up some arrogance and naive assumptions. I've observed the board meetings safely from home. There's no reason to be here in person when the pandemic is going on, and I think the safety of our community is important. I also met with Director Mendoza last week. I'm very familiar with what's going on with the board, how it works, and these assumptions are ridiculous. We have a very educated community. I am one of those members. As far as the street sweeping, I know from my meeting with Mr. Mendoza last week that it's almost completed. There's really not more to say. I agree with the board. It's almost done. It's a great result.
Thank you.
Okay, our next question is, many governing boards, city councils have citizen committees serving as advisors to their boards. How will you, as a director, seek and involve community members to serve within this capacity? And we'll start with Michael.
Okay. One of the pleasures of being president is you have the authority to create committees. And as mentioned, I've been president now 4 times. And 2 of the committees that I am on and or created, one is called the Rossmoor Advisory Committee, where it's 2 people from the RHA, 2 people from RCSD, and 2 at-large citizen. And this group really helped knock out the ability of Los Alamitos to annex our 4th corner and work collaboratively there. The other thing is setting up a traffic committee. Again, same concept, 2 RCSD, 2 RHA, 2 members at large, and trying to motivate them this year to be on offense instead of defense in defending lanes and any encroachments that either Seal Beach or Los Alamitos wants to take. So I've been a big fan of collaboration, of working groups, and we've always tried whenever a new committee, is this one just between Rossmoor, is this one that we need to open up so we can get more feedback and we can have actually a better collective product?
Okay. Jeff?
In my short time on our RCSD, I've seen a lot of that going on, and it's really important, especially working with RHA. There's been some tension with Rossmoor Homeowners Association. I've been a member for many, many years, as long as I can remember. And I believe the tension is unnecessary. So part of my role on RCSD is, at least pre-COVID, was to attend RHA meetings as a director to represent RCSD at the RHA meetings. And I think over the time that I've been on this board that we've improved the relationship with RHA, and we're looking for more ways to collaborate with the Rossmoor Homeowners Association than we have in the past. So rather than doing our own thing and sometimes coming to disagreements, I think it's important that we work together, as RHA represents quite a few of the homeowners that are members of the organization. I also sit now on the traffic committee, and it's half the fun of RCSD is to participate in the various committees where we get community involvement, because ultimately the best way to solve problems as a representative of the larger community is to get as much community input as we can to ultimately create a path forward and not simply be reactive as problems come up.
Thank you. Nathan?
Yes, thank you. The benefit of this year is it's a presidential election. I'm running because I know there needs to be greater involvement from the community. The RHA carries a heavy burden, and we have lots of community members who want to be involved, but they don't know how. And I know the RHA has done a great job the last month or 2 of actually getting out there and showing what they are doing. They've been doing this all along, but now they're able to get out there with their voice and say, this is what we do. The RCSD, as I said in my opening statement, needs to empower that. And so we can work to expand the RHA and the RCSD together to actually having more members of the community working together. That's what I see. That's why I'm running. I hope when people are looking at why this election matters for the RCSD directorship, it's because we need a board that will empower the RHA with those resources. That budget, the staffing, and the organizational commitments will work, and we can take advantage of that.
Thank you. Tony?
I've been on countless committees over the last 7 years. I think we have, with standing and everything, about 10 or 13 committees. I fully endorse and, wholeheartedly would love more participation in committees. We by law, we have to notify the community, and, we are online. We constantly try to improve our communication with our residents, but certainly all of our committees are open to the public. Like I said, I was just in a traffic committee where we had members from RHA. We invited members for the school district. They didn't show up because there was a school board meeting that day, and we had community at large members. But anyone could have come to that meeting. So all of our committee members are open to the public, just like our meetings second Tuesday of every month are open to the residents. And I agree that how to get involved is just give Mr. Mendoza a call, and trust me, he'll get you to work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
It's your turn.
I know. My turn. The next question, Nathan, you'll be up first, is What is the primary project you believe the RCSD should champion over the next 4 years of your term?
As far as a project, I think the greatest concern we have right now is from the pandemic and state and local budgets, and not particularly our budget. I think we're really well funded with our property taxes, but I'm worried about other agencies asking for that money back. I know that we are a donor community. We're giving more to the county through the state of our property taxes than we receive back. I'm concerned that they're going to see that and say, wait a second, we can be squeezing Rossmoor a little bit more. And so it's not necessarily that we're going to take away a project, but we have facilities like this building that we need to keep maintaining. And I don't want to be in a situation where 4 years from now, because we weren't able to maintain and take care of things a little bit more than we needed to, that we are looking at asking residents for a larger assessment, because all of a sudden we have a large project. And so I'm concerned that our budget might get squeezed by these other agencies, and we need to be prepared for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony.
My turn? Yes. So we went through just as I got on the board, 2013, and coming off of 12 from the recession of 2008. And where our budget dipped at that time was just on people that didn't pay their taxes for economic reasons. We are, as a board, ever since I've been on it, we have been very frugal with our money. We are very conservative. When I got on the board, I believe our rainy day fund was about $250,000, and I think we are pushing 1.2 million, 1.3 million. So we have, which is almost our yearly budget. So we have, the RCSD, the community of Rossmoor is very secure in terms of money, and I think where the projects I would, after the street sweeping, we need to be mindful. The biggest, I think, problem we have right now is Montecito and the parking overflow from the condominiums, and possibly another fitness center being built, like the one we convinced Seal Beach to not pass, that is going to affect our community drastically.
Thank you. Michael.
As president this year, COVID has been difficult. Luckily, over the past few years, we have been very financially prudent, as Director DeMarco had mentioned. We had one little dip, and that dip of expense was making sure our parks were compliant with the Disabilities Act. And I'm happy to say that we were part of the people who actually made that happen. But since then, we got so frugal, I kept on pounding, no, cut, and we did the right thing. And during COVID, this board has had to make some tough decisions. How we shut down, how we reduced water, and even how we had to treat staff and make some very tough decisions. As Tony mentioned, we have our biggest surplus rainy day fund than we have ever had in the history of Rossmoor, and that's because of the fundamental prudent leadership that this board already is. So we were concerned with what happens if all of a sudden people do pull back. We saw that, we didn't recognize that during COVID. We recognized that 3 or 4 years ago. And we have made all the proper things to set up Rossmoor here and now as a very solvent agency and have made the right financial decisions. And to be honest, I want to keep leading that fight to manage and shepherd our resources, especially our finances.
Thank you. Jeff.
Thank you. I think there's several things we need to really be looking at. There's some immediate projects like completing the street sweeping, and I think that'll be worth celebrating when we get that done. Just like we did a couple weeks ago, retiring the bond debt, and we celebrated that. Parking on Montecito is not going to get better, it's only going to get worse. We've already talked about putting together a committee to address that issue and looking at things like maybe a Rossmoor permit for the residents that are impacted by the condos and the apartments that are along Montecito, or other creative ideas that people might have. Los Al Unified School District, we need to get a Rossmoor resident on that school board, and hopefully with this election we will. And that's important because school enrollment is going to decline. There's going to be a natural tendency for the district to want to increase inter-district transfers again, which could directly affect the Rossmoor and the congestion and the parking and the traffic flow that comes into Rossmoor. We need to be proactive, not just reactive. We need to also be cognizant about possible zoning changes that are coming from Sacramento, low-income housing, congested zoning ideas, sober living that they want to put in, et cetera. So those are the things that we need to be proactive and thoughtful about, not just reactive when they come knock on our door.
Thank you.
Okay. This is the last question. Do you have a passion or direction you would like to see RCSD go in or support? And we'll start with Tony.
Passion or direction? You know, the direction should be from the residents from within. I mean, my personal passion is safety, is also parks and recreation. That's why we brought in Mr. Mendoza. He's a LA County Parks guy, and he's turned our parks and facilities around and made them look beautiful. And we have a lot of square footage that is not utilized a lot, so we can make money off of utilization of the square footage. So that's a passion of mine. You know, keeping our streets clean, our values up, keeping our trees healthy. Certainly, you know, we haven't talked about trees all night. The trees is a very, very important commodity in Rossmoor. And we have, you know, 60-year-old sycamore trees that we love and we admire and look at, and we protect them, and that's why we have an arborist, and that's why we have ordinances to protect them. And even when residents get a little frustrated, they can still come to us, and hopefully we can come up with a resolution on their behalf for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael?
I'm passionate about community and what you call the way of Rossmoor. The first time I moved in here, or actually saw it, was by accident, and I saw a girls' softball game, and I saw them playing, and I was going, and by the way, this is just when my daughter was born, and I was just taking a break from hospital duty with my wife and stuff. So some of the things I'm passionate about are things you're going to start to see. I love the idea of RCSD and RHA working on the blood drive. I'm hoping that that happens quarterly. I'll tell you that when we had the high school parade, that, again, RHA did all the legwork, but we worked together to make sure that that would happen in the streets in collaboration. That was actually one of my proudest moments, especially because I have a daughter who's class of 2020, so it actually hit. But to me, it's community. I love the fact that we now have a winter event, a winter festival, instead of just the May Carnival. I think we need to do more of that. I want the community to get out of their house, and I want them to come together. And so that is actually my passion. But then again, I have the prudent business CEO inside of me that says, I want to run a financially solvent self-enterprise within the RCSD and show incredible leadership.
Thank you. Jeff?
Thank you. Boy, I'm passionate about Rossmoor and the Rossmoor way of life. I've lived here now for over 20 years. I'd like to see someday my grandkids experience Rossmoor. No, I don't have any yet. And that doesn't happen by just being passive. It has to happen by being proactive. We've got over 5,000 trees in Rossmoor. And it's so wonderful on a weekend day to see the kids playing in the park, a ball game going on in Rush Park or Rossmoor Park. And we need to be cognizant of changes that may be coming that could affect our Rossmoor way of life. So rather than just sit back and react as things happen, we need to look forward and be proactive to be able to ensure that our Rossmoor way of life is stable, is maintained for the next generation, so they can enjoy our beautiful community as well.
For sure. Thank you. Nathan?
Yeah, thank you. I see it the same way. I want this community and the RCSD to be one. I want the board to say, we serve the residents of Rossmoor. That means having the kids safe, supporting our schools. One of the issues that I see that we can be a partner with the Orange County Public Works is There's no reason in the world we should have passing zones near schools. But in front of the schools, we have dotted lines allowing you to legally pass a car in a school zone. That is ridiculous. That's not a safe approach, and the RCSD may not be in charge of those streets, but we can have the voice that tells the public works community, this needs to be done. There's no benefit to our residents to have a passing lane there. It's all risk, no reward. So those are the things I see, is how do we keep our kids safe and make it a community important. With that comes the idea that our property values are driven by how great our schools are, and I want to build those property values. So I want it to be a safe community. It's got to be a safe community because that's what people want when they buy a home. And we have that, so I look forward to doing that with the RCSD. And the only other thing is I hope we can come up with more resources and events and community activities for our aging populations. Because as Jeff and Tony and Mike have said, we all want to live here forever. And by the time I get old, I want to be able to come into this building and be able to enjoy it with some kind of activity. So I look forward to the RCSD giving some permits for operations in this building for aging communities as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So now we're going to hear your closing remarks, and I'm going to change the response or the time frame on this. If we could go for 2-minute closings, just to give you a little more time, because there was a lot discussed, and you are the heartbeat of our community in making sure that things are done right, and we trust that they will be going forth. So we're going to do a 2-minute closing, and we're going to reverse the order of how we began, if I get this right. Please, I stand corrected. That's not a problem. So we're going to start with Michael.
Oh, okay.
If you would, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
As mentioned, I've had the privilege of serving this community for the last 10, I'm in my 10th year, so that's 2011. I've done some good stuff. I think our board has been responsible, and I would like to continue moving Rossmoor in the correct direction with financial stability, with solid business decisions that we make with a businessman point of view, but with a heart for the community. I believe that what Rossmoor needs right now is experience. People who haven't just thought about it, talked about it, but people who've actually done it. People who've actually been on boards before, specifically this board. We have a lot of things that, a lot of accomplishments. Other areas that we're working on, like the parking issue that Tony mentioned, is a big problem. And we've got some plans of attack, and we are working on those right now. We are constantly working for the people and the community of Rossmoor. And so I would like your vote. I would like to continue in that realm. I think you have a solid board that's made the right decisions, not just this year, but in years past. Actually being one of the few agencies that didn't just only pay off their bond, but paid off 2 bonds faster to save the residents money and to save the districts thousands and thousands of dollars. And also just being good, prudent managers with the resources that we get and the relationships that we make, how you leverage them. So again, I'm asking for your vote. I have been president 4 times. I know I keep saying that, but I have been a leader. Out of the 9 years I've been here, 7 have been as an officer of this board. So please get out and vote, and please vote for Michael Maynard, Rossmoor Community Service District.
Thank you. Tony?
Thank you. Thank you again, RHA, for putting this on. You do a fantastic job in our community. Thank you for all the people here putting this on. We really appreciate it. I know the residents appreciate this. This kind of activity is what makes Rossmoor such a great place to live. And I know my family and I love living here. You know, I'm on 2 other boards, a state association, a local merchant association. I don't know, I like doing what I do. I feel that I bring something to the table. And I think that me being on the boards that I have served on have brought a lot of positive things to Rossmoor. And I will continue, if elected, to bring positive achievements to Rossmoor, but at the same time protecting its interests. I'm all about, having political might, so to speak, and trying to build relationships with county and with state and other elected officials. And that is very, very important for a small little conclave in unincorporated Orange County. So my name is Tony DeMarco. I'm running for RCSD Director. I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Nathan.
Thank you. Again, thank you to the RHA. It's been a fabulous evening. It was great to see the other candidates from the other races as well. I appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself. Again, my name is Nathan Searles. I'm running because I love the community of Rossmoor. Rossmoor deserves a board that represents it. Even tonight, I heard this board beforehand described as a frat club, and that's not acceptable. I don't accept the chauvinist board comments that were made during the bond retirement ceremony. It was a really, really important moment. 30 years of great work by the directors and members of the community were sullied by an immature, juvenile comment about chauvinist nature, and I don't accept that. We have a $1.6 million budget. That's serious. We have property taxes paid by residents. That's serious. We have safety and enjoyment of our parks, and we need to take that serious too. This is an important position. And so to treat it like a frat club or a chauvinist organization is not acceptable to me, and it shouldn't be acceptable to Rossmoor. Now, I'll work with anyone I have to make Rossmoor great. That's my goal. I know one of the gentlemen up here will, at least one of them will be reelected, and I look forward to working with them. That's not a choice. If you run for a position, you have to work with the people on the board, and I will take that on. Again, my name is Nathan Searles. My website is nathan4rcsd.com. I'm middle of the ballot, dead third in the middle, and I humbly ask for your vote. A vote for me is a vote for Rossmoor. And I want you to keep in mind that some people may say that they have influence with our supervisor. That supervisor has withdrawn many of her images with that director this past week, and that's not an influential situation we need to have in Rossmoor, and that's why I'm running as well. So thank you.
Jeff, if you would, please.
Thank you. It is such an honor to be on the RCSD board. I value collaboration. It's been a wonderful year working with the other directors. We've gotten a lot accomplished. It's an honor for me as an RCSD director to also attend the RHA board. I'm a member of the RHA. I have been for many, many years, and I enjoy the interaction, the collaboration, the building of relationships. Relationships are really what it's all about here in Rossmoor. The Rossmoor way of life has been very good to my family. My wife, Mary, and I have lived here for over 20 years. We've raised 2 kids here in Rossmoor. I think it's a wonderful community. You know, one of the things I really enjoy doing is when I tell people that I live in Rossmoor, they ask, where do you live? Rossmoor. And you look at them, and they either know, and they smile, or they look at you quizzitively, and they don't really know where Rossmoor is. We're sort of a secret gem in Orange County, and I like it that way. And it's important because we're unincorporated that we build deep relationships with elected officials, because ultimately we don't make our own decisions with a lot of things that go on. We're dependent on the county. So having those relationships with county officials is very, very important, so we can work collaboratively with them to get tasks accomplished here in Rossmoor. So it's been a wonderful year. My name is Dr. Jeff Barkey. I look forward to continuing to serve this community, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And Joe, before turning it over, you just want to remind the audience, the viewing audience, that this forum will repeat numerous times up until November 3rd on LATV, Channel 3, live. And Joe, thank you for hosting.
Yes, thank you, ladies. Fabulous job. What a delight working with you on this, getting it all done. I want to make a few announcements here. And first, I'd like to thank the candidates for being here tonight and your participation. We loved hearing from all of you and all of your input. And thank you for your service on RCSD. With that being said, I have a few things I'd like to say about RHA. First of all, we have some events coming up. We do partner with the RCSD in many of these, so I think it's important to keep that collaboration going. We do appreciate you allowing us to use your facilities here tonight for this one event and sharing it, and also with some other upcoming events. The 2nd, mark your calendars, guys. October 2nd, we have our blood drive coming up. So I expect to see all you guys out here giving blood. I'm just saying. Please show up for that and help support RHA on this. We do want to make that a monthly event, like Mr. Maynard said. And Tony, love it, guys. Absolutely. We're trying to get out there a lot more in monthly events. Our second one is going to be, actually, it's not us, it's you guys. Pardon me, I have a bug flying around here. It's going to be here, RCSD Rush Park is hosting a movie night, October 30th. So mark your calendars, let's go, let's see the movies. I'm looking forward to that event. The very next morning, RHA is hosting a shredding event, which is very popular event. People love getting rid of all their old stuff. Bring in all your shredding stuff, all your things that you need to get rid of. We are going to be partnering with the City of Los Alamitos Youth Center to start kicking off our toy drive that day along with our shredding event. So make sure you go out and bring your toy as well when you come to the shredding. Get rid of all your stuff and bring a toy because we're kicking it off. Toys are going to be needed this year. It's going to be a skinny Christmas for a lot, so I think they will be appreciated. After that, we do have a very special event that we are planning November 6th. This is the Los Alamitos High School. You guys all remember the parade. I have once again partnered with Los Alamitos High School, and the RHA is going to be hosting a movie night at the Rossmoor shops. It's going to be the performing arts part of Los Alamitos High School. It's going to be all of them. It's not going to be a movie. It's going to be a video of basically all of their performing arts. And because the high school is not able to utilize their theater in any way, they can't have, and that's for the whole year. It's not just, this is for the whole year. Those kids can't perform to their parents. Their families can't come and enjoy the shows. So we're pivoting and we're putting on a video movie night over at Rossmoor Shops. It's going to be a huge event that is November 6th. We're expecting about 500 to 600 kids. So at about 450, 500 cars. So it's, again, a monster. Along with that, we will have, that's all before Christmas, guys. I just want to say.
Thank you.
So yeah, we're real slackers here on the RHA. Okay, I'd like to also just mention that we are doing a special birthday events here in Rossmoor Homeowners Association. If you have a special birthday that you want to do a shout out for, please notify the RHA, because we do come to your home, wish you a happy birthday, bring you some treats and balloon, and a nice big giant cupcake yard card for your birthday. We recently just had one over this past weekend. I don't know if you guys saw it. Mr. Dalcone had turned 95 years old. It was the CHP along with the fire department all came out and did a huge parade for him on Kensington. He's an original homeowner. He had a huge, wonderful story. Please read about it in our upcoming newsletter. And you'll read all the great stories that he had in his life. Anyway, if you have a special birthday, please reach out to the RHA and let us know, because we will help celebrate that and, take note of it. Also, we are going to be asking if you are an original homeowner here in Rossmoor. It would be great if you reached out to us, because we'd like to showcase your story, when you moved into Rossmoor, how long you've lived there, your life story, and you're still there. So we want to get those original homeowners and showcase them. Let us know if you're an original homeowner in Rossmoor. It'd be great to hear from you. That being said, I do have some special thanks to do a shout out for. Larry, Losal TV, and his crew, thank you very much for doing all of this for us. We appreciate it more than we can say. Mr. Mario Mitchell, who is sitting right next to me. a very good friend of mine and co-worker. We run in the same circles. He's a born and bred Rossmoor resident, so I asked him to chime in and help us out at all events. He likes to help us out, so we love that. Thank you. Last, I'd like to close with just say, please, if you are out there and you are not a member of the Homeowners Association, please become one. It is so well worth it. We try and do so many things here in Rossmoor to better the life and the community of our residents, and we really appreciate it. Just chime in, visit our website, ourrossmoor.com, see what we're all about. And we do great things, and we'd love for you to join us and help us out, making our community as great as it is. And I think that's about it. I'm going to close it with that. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Incredible night. Well done.
Yes, thank you very much. All right, thank you.